Is there still a place in mountain biking for Lycra?
And then the maths goes wrong and it ends up being 2,500.
The grips were so hard, I basically had stigmata in my hands.
Efficiency has always been allied falsely, in my opinion, to the amount of travel a bike has.
Hi everyone, it's Mark here. Now, just before we start this week's episode, I want to tell you about our sponsor, Oladance. If you're looking for earbuds while riding, Oladance wearable stereo are the ones you need. The unique open ear design of Oladance allows you to listen to your favourite music when riding, yet still hear your surroundings to keep you safe. Now, what interested me is that unlike bone conduction headphones, their open ear design and multi-support design means your ears will never get tired or fatigued, even after 2 hours or more of listening. They also don't interfere with your helmet and glasses when you're putting on all your gear. Plus, the dynamic driver the earbuds use is 3 times bigger than most headphones, which allows them to deliver superior sound. The 16 hours long-lasting battery can last for your whole day. Just visit oladance.com/STW and use the code STW30 to save 20% on your purchase. That's oladance.com, oladance.com/STW and the code STW30. Get yours now. Hello, Single Track listeners. Mark here. You join us for another weekly Single Track World podcast. This week, I'm joined in the virtual studio by...
Me, Benji Howarth, tech editor, person.
Me, Chips Chippendale, editor-at-large, currently at large in Somerset for a change.
Chips, you're in the country. Why? What are you doing here? I thought we'd actually... I thought you'd been Rwandaed.
Well, yes, I am a Brexit refugee, and I do normally live in France, but I'm over for a couple of weeks to hopefully oversee the final sale of my house, and also I am guiding a trip for MTB Wales, the Trans-Cambrian, so a 3-day trip across Wales. I'm going to be a responsible guide for a few days. Keep my hand in.
That's something probably I wonder if our listeners know that you are actually a qualified mountain bike guide these days, aren't you?
Yes, hard as it may be, I do. I'm a British Cycling Level 3 mountain bike guide, which, as far as I know, is like as good as it gets.
So tell us about the Trans Wales thing. Where's it go to and from?
The Trans-Cambrian is it goes east to west from the English-Welsh border, sort of about halfway down mid-Wales, starts in the town of Knighton, and it goes sort of due west to Rhaeadr, and then it does a sort of lap of the Elan Valley, goes around a bunch of reservoirs, and you eventually arrive sort of 2.5 days later in Machynlleth. I think the full route actually goes all the way to Dovey Junction to the sea, but traditionally it sort of seems that everyone gets to the pub in Machynlleth and they've had enough and they stop there.
Some classic riding then.
Yeah, it goes through what they call the Green Desert of Wales. So there's a lot of big empty countryside, lots of sheep farming, very little in the way of resupply stops and pubs and things. So I think we stay at the only pubs that are on the route.
So very, very much a pub-to-pub occasion, this one.
Yes, it's done for completely practical reasons, just because that's where you can keep your bike and get a nice meal in the evening. Nothing to do with rewarding yourself with beers for a job well done.
Well, that sounds cool. So we're going to see you up here in the office, aren't we, next week? Is that right?
Yes, I'm going to be around Monday, Tuesday, probably when this comes out, and marvel at all the secret test bikes that I don't know about.
Well, Benji can tell us all about those anyway. So first of all, Benji, what have you been up to this week?
Finishing stuff for the next issue of the mag, so been hardtailing around and about on different price point and different user group hardtails, I don't call them really.
So in our tradition of having a theme for bike tests, what is the theme other than just hardtails?
The theme for this current half an hour, so it changes again. I think it's called Double Your Money. Hardtails, I think.
Oh, I see. So the theory there is that each one is twice the price of the one before.
Yeah.
Is that the kind of thing?
600, 1200, and then the maths goes wrong and it ends up being 2500. But that's, happens when you spend over budget, isn't it?
Yeah,
And we've
cool.
got bikes from, is it a surprise? It's not really. We've got the Voodoo, Bragg, 2As, I don't know, Merida Big Trail 400, and Trek Pro Caliber 9.6.
All right. I'm guessing that's the one that's the expensive one.
Yes, it's got the ISO speed soft tail.
So it's not actually a hardtail.
It is when you stand up.
Ah.
It's like a YBB or a very, very small URT.
What's a YBB?
Was that a Moots or someone?
Yeah, it was a Moots.
What does it stand for? What does YBB stand for?
YB Beaten. I think it was. And it was like a wishbone, seat stay, flex chain stays, and there was some sort of elastomer or spring in the bit above the stays leading to the seat tube that would move a little bit.
We actually have each other on video here, so it's interesting to watch Benji there close his eyes and imagine it and draw the shape of the back end of that bike with his
I
fingers.
think it was a wishtail. It must have been a wishtail. They all, because that's how it works, isn't it? Must have been.
Yeah.
And then,
So what about URT? What does that stand for?
Unified Rear Triangle.
Okay, try and without using your fingers and closing your eyes, can you explain what a URT is?
It was a way of not dealing with how the drivetrain and the rear suspension can interact with each other. So the drivetrain was on the swing arm. There you go.
Okay. How would you rate that description, Chips, for a words-only definition of URT?
Yeah, that's pretty good. Yes, the bottom bracket and the rear triangle were all in this on the same non-moving bit of the bike, and then the pivot was between the bottom bracket and the front of the bike, I guess. And the defining feature of it was that when you sat down, it was nice and comfy because the bike kind of squished around. But as soon as you stood up, you were effectively standing on the rear triangle, and the suspension didn't work. So when you were descending, you were on a rigid bike, and when you were riding along and needed all that efficiency and power, you were on a full suspension bike. So possibly not the best way of doing things.
I see. There we go. All right. It's always good to, whenever we mention these three-letter acronym. It's got to spell a word, hasn't it? An acronym. Is that TLA? Yes, three-letter acronym. It's always good to flesh these things out because we kind of assume that everybody knows what we're talking about sometimes.
So yeah, the Pro Caliber is a URT, really. It does feel a bit like that. That's the idea.
Again, taking liberties with the titles. It's not even hardtail, is it? That's how we roll here at Single Track with our themes and bikes.
Yeah.
Sometimes we'll do a test that's just because they're all the same colour. That's how vague
it does look good.
Sometimes.
It's the best looking one, I think. Even though it's not my usual thing, I think it looks quite good.
So I'm going to say, how much for the Voodoo?
$580.
Wow.
It's not bad, is it? Well, a lot of this is kind of countering all the... not countering. Showing another side of the five-figure... Not actually e-bikes, but a lot of them are e-bikes. It doesn't really matter if it's got a motor or not, because we've got one mentioned the other day. I can't remember what it was, but there was a five-figure, just normal mountain bike.
Yeah, we were talking about that in the office, wasn't it?
Yeah, so it's like...
I think it was got 11,000 quid.
Yeah, because I think me and you thought we were talking about an e-bike.
Yeah.
And no, it's not an e-bike. It's just a... Okay. Right. But it's like, well, you could have one of them, but you know what? You could also go on this 600 quid Voodoo. That's really all right, really.
Hey, Chips, do you remember the article we did years ago where you did the Maritana Loop on a 100 quid bike from Halfords?
I do, very much so. It was actually a 75 quid bike because I think I spent my spare 25 quid on a pair of SPDs. And the grips were so hard, I basically had stigmata in my hands after that because the grips were so hard. But it made it round, and I think we successfully sold it to a reader for 50 quid after that.
Landis Voodoo's perfectly good. It rode everything. I've not shied away from the usual places. If you know where you're going, you might not be able to stop quite as fast.
But it has disc brakes and...
Yeah, disc brakes are just still not really bedded in. I think like 100 miles or something in it, and the back one's still like a mirror. They must be like the world's most durable pads. So I did eventually swap them around. So I bedded in the front, and I thought, I'll put these in the back and start all over again. It's good. Fork doesn't really do an awful lot.
Right, well, let's move on because, Chips, onto some actual news. Chips, today you said you were actually writing a story that might not be out when we get this podcast live, but anyway, you can tell us about it now. Give all our listeners a preview of what's coming up. You've found some new tech. I think the 2x system's coming back.
Yeah, 2x is back. Whether you like it or can afford it, we'll come to that bit in a second. But there's a company called Classified which has been making big waves in the road world because they have developed a sort of very well engineered, lightweight, electrically shifted 2-speed hub. And the idea is that certainly on the road, you can ditch your front derailleur, you can run a single chain ring, and yet you still have the small changes in steps and gears that road riders like, and it shifts under load. Your pretend front derailleur basically shifts under up to 1200 watts, I think. So you could do it mid sprint if you really wanted to. Not that you would, but so it can handle lots of power, and so that's been sort of making waves in the road world. But they have this month announced their new mountain bike version. So there's a mountain bike hub. The hub itself has this 2-speed shifter, 2-speed shifting mechanism inside it, and there's a wireless shifter that operates it. And it's all very clever, so they reckon.
You said that the block on this is actually proprietary. They make the block on it. What's the range of that block?
The hub itself, if you imagine, I think most people will know that the SRAM cassettes are a sort of a hollowed out cone of metal, and the Classified cassette looks very similar. It's hollowed out from one lump of steel, and the hub itself is this cone that fits into the back of it. So it doesn't really take up any extra space. For the mountain bikes, they are doing a 12-speed cassette. They do an 11 to 40, and they also do an 11 to 34. But with the 11 to 40, you get a 530% range of gears, which is just more than you get in a roll-off 14-speed hub, and it's more than the 520% you get from a SRAM 10 to 52 cassette. The hub basically offers a reduction of 0.7 in the gear ratio. And I rode the road version at the Tour of Flanders. Not the race, you understand. I wasn't racing the Tour of Flanders, but I did do the 75k kind of cobbled classic for the masses. So I got to use this system a fair amount. And it does give you instant shifting at what would be your front derailleur ratios. And it works very well, whether you need it or not.
Yeah, well, that's my next question. I mean, the percentage you get in the gears there isn't tremendously more than you can get with a single ring setup, like you say, like the SRAM. Was it about 530? You said this system
530, yeah.
Gives you. SRAM gives you about close to that, isn't it?
Yeah, if you have a 10 to 50 SRAM cassette, that's 500, and if you have the 10 to 52, that's a 520. So it's
it makes me wonder what's the point.
Well, so and obviously
how many gears is it then? Is it like
it's
12?
Yeah,
24.
24 in total.
Yeah.
So I guess it's you got a close.
There are 16 unique gears in there. Their argument is that you can have a much closer range of gears. So you've got a 10.5% step size between each gear, and you haven't got a massive jump to your bailout gear or whatever. And effectively, you've got, you ride around in the big ring all the time with these nice jumps between your gears, and then you've got an instantly available bailout gear. It effectively shifts sort of 3 gears at a time by shifting, pretend chain rings. So they reckon that if you're doing a lot of like unflowy trails where you're changing direction, changing speed a lot, then you can hair into a corner instantly and reliably dump what would be 3 gears to to pedal out of the corner again. It may find favour amongst racers and people that love gadgets. I mean, it works brilliantly well. The power comes from the through axle. So the battery actually sits in the through axle, what would be the QR lever and your rear axle. And it wirelessly induces the hub to change gear. So there's no wires anywhere. And they have a very neat kind of handlebar mounted ring shifter that just goes, up and down. But I don't know. Do you need that? Maybe you do. Maybe not.
I know some riders, some friends of mine. One in particular, his name will remain nameless. Al. But he will probably think that this is amazing because he thinks it's ridiculous that we're ditching the front chainrings. And I couldn't disagree with him more. But no, I imagine that Al's listening to this going, yes, see, I told you. So maybe
Yes.
he has a point. Are we going to get a set for a mountain bike to test?
We hopefully are, yes. They should be available end of April, early May for testing. So we'll put our names into the hat for that. There are a few disadvantages. As I said, it does work perfectly. And, they've tested it under kind of track sprinting power. And it works fine. And it really does kind of shift instantly. However, you do have to use their hubs, which means you have to have either a wheel that they supply, or you have to get the hub and build it into your own wheel. And the sort of complete cost of it is about, I think if you get everything and a wheel, it's about €2,700.
Ooh. Early adopter price.
It is a little,
There.
yes.
Yeah. Hey, presumably, though, trickle down and all that, if it proves to be a winner, maybe in a few years' time, we'll all be riding these sorts of things.
I wonder why they did it at Flanders. Is it to highlight not dropping chains and things?
Yeah, I think the thing with Flanders is that you tend to go flat out in your big ring towards the bottom of these tricky cobbled climbs, and then you suddenly need much lower gears. So it's not an undulating kind of, I need one gear more or something. Yeah. It's like flat and then panic stations. And I imagine, if you unship a chain on a road bike at the bottom of a cobble climb, you're walking up in road shoes and you've effectively lost the race. So that was their sort of thinking behind that. So, and they use that same argument as, if you're riding techie single track where you need dramatic change in gearing, then this is really good. Also, they say that your suspension will probably work better because it may have been designed around a 34 tooth chainring, because a lot of bikes, all their test riders are super macho, super fast riders who run big chainrings, and you and I are riding around on a 28 or a 30. And it's a bit bob-tastic.
Hey, it sounds really good. I'm looking forward to seeing that when we. I'll look forward to your news item, which will be coming out shortly, probably
as soon as I finish writing
in a few days' time.
Yes.
I imagine. Excellent. Well, it might be out before this podcast hits the airwaves, which is cool. Now, still on the subject of testing, Benji, you've been tell us about a new Marin e-bike that's coming to us.
Marin.
Chips, Marin. What is it?
Marin, but then only if you also
Marin.
say Porsche. So you can call it what you want, I think.
They've got a new e-bike range called the Rift Zone E, which is, they have normal aspirated Rift Zones, don't they, around?
Yes.
Nice, actually. They're like the 130, 140 mil kind of trail bikes. This is their E-assisted version with Shimano stuff, Shimano motors, full motors, fairly full batteries, I think, probably 600s from 620, I think. And we will not be getting one because I want the Alpine Trail E1 instead.
What's the difference between them, Benji?
It's got more travel.
Okay, right. Nicely led into where I'm going with this, because there was a staff chat this morning I can't mention the brand we were talking about, but basically what came out, we were talking about different e-bikes and travel. And it turns out, Benji, you've got a bit of a problem with what we call full-fat e-bikes and not enough travel.
Yeah.
What's your problem with a full-fat e-bike and 120 mil of travel?
It's the worst of both worlds. Not that I particularly think the weight is a worst at all, really. But I suppose it is if you want to lift them over places where you're not supposed to go with them, which is the real problem. It's not so much about handling, is it? It's just I can't get them over 5-bar gates very easily.
Well, that's got nothing to do with travel, surely. What's the? You won't. You're basically saying that you aren't prepared to swing your leg over a full fat e-bike if it's only got 120 mil of travel.
Yes, because you can get a 160 mil bike, regardless of e-bike or not, but an e-bike we're talking about, to ride. You could literally get it to ride just the same as a shorter travel bike, can't you? You put more pressure in it, more air in it, or whatever. Efficiency has always been allied falsely, in my opinion, to the amount of travel a bike has. So I think you can get a longer travel e-bike to ride exactly like a shorter travel one, and not vice versa. So why bother?
Interesting. Chips, what do you think to that?
It depends what you want your e-bike for. Are you self-shuttling? Are you using your e-bike to get to the top of great big mountain descents?
Well, one bike does it all and one doesn't do as much. It makes no sense. It makes no sense. It's just an anti-bravado, I only need plague cycling about what's the least we can get away with for some weird reason. It's like, it's bananas. It weighs the same. It'll probably handle worse because it'll have a 34 on the front and will bind when you try and break it. It'll be more dangerous than the longer travel one.
I was so hoping this would trigger you, Benji, and it certainly has.
But that's kind of why we have these other ones coming out, isn't it? It's why we have these ones that have the lighter, not really because of motor, is it? The motor doesn't really change that much weight, but the commensurate power they need means you can have a much lighter battery. So I can kind of see why you'd have low power, low weight e-bike. And I can see why you'd have a low power, big travel e-bike, because I've got one at the moment, the Canevo SL. That makes sense. But to have all the weight and hamstring its capability is an odd thing.
Right. I'm sure our listeners might have their own opinions on this. And if you've got an opinion on this and you'd like it to be read out on the air, then write to Benji at Single Track Towers.
I do think that people think that if you have more travel, it's less efficient under power. It's not. It's going to be heavier because there's more of it and they're usually fatter, aren't they? So there's a weight issue, but I don't really think weight really matters, particularly on an assisted bike. The more travel you have doesn't affect how much it bobs or anything. Just set it up differently. It's banana.
I always look for more travel. I always myself, but that's probably just because I like to be comfortable. And I just maybe mistakenly attribute more travel to more comfort. But who knows? Maybe I'm just not setting up my suspension right, but I kind of look at a 120 mil fork and think, yeah, but I could have more. So maybe in a roundabout way, I'm with you, Benji. I don't know, but maybe for me, it's probably a less structured argument than yours and more to do with the fact I just think more is better in whatever,
I suppose
whatever guise it is.
The issue we used to have with more travel as well is when bikes are really short wheelbase, you put more travel under the bike and it gets very, very unstable, and it really exacerbates like things like fork dive and stuff like that if it's badly set up. So I can see why you would avoid loads of travel when bikes were far too short. And now we package I don't design these things. The forks, axle to the length of them. Everyone's used to big wheels, things, head tubes can be short. We've got riser bars on. Just think now bikes are a lot longer. The centre of gravity can come up a bit, so it's not. Things have changed a bit. There's a 120 mil bike. I can't remember if it's at work or in the garage at the moment, which is worrying, but it is somewhere. There's a 120 mil bike And it's the most energy-robbing bike I've ridden for quite some time. And I get
Is
on
that an e-bike?
No, it's just a normal bike.
Right.
It's like it's got a wibbly-wobbly fork that uses all of its travel. You have to put loads of air in it and crank it up, and it's still not damped. The back is bob-tastic. And then I get on my inverted commas bike that's 160mm travel with coil springs at both ends at the moment, and it's more stable than that supposedly more efficient bike. It's a load of balls. It just is.
I think we should leave it there because we're going over to another episode of Desert Island Disc Brakes. Hannah's got another one lined up for us. She's been away in Italy at a top secret launch, and she's come back with a flurry of interviews for Desert Island Disc Brakes with a whole bunch of pro riders. So I wonder who we've got this week. So over to you, Hannah.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Desert Island Disc Brakes. I'm Hannah and I'm here with Fabien Barel.
Thank you. Really happy to join.
And so I don't think you have Radio 4 in France.
Not really, no.
This is a shameless rip-off of that. So we look at your life through the bikes that you have ridden. And then at the end of it, we send you off to spend the rest of your days on an island alone.
Okay.
Okay?
Sounds good.
Sounds good.
Sounds
okay.
good. I like it.
So the first question is, when did you learn to ride and what was your first bike?
Well, my first bike was obviously a full hardtail. Actually, it was a GT. I think it was called Ricochet or something like that. RICOCHET. With a RockShox Quadra 10. That was actually fully elastomer. So this was back in 1993. So
And that was your very first bike?
This was my very first mountain bike.
That's another question.
That's another question. My very first
You
bike
might not be able to remember.
was, I have a photo, so it's not remembering, it's a photo of me like with, and my parents were wrong, but I had those little wheels on the side. I think that's the earliest I remember with very ugly helmet, terrible. Those road leather skin helmet that they were using, that's what my parents put on my head. So this was bad. And I think the brand of the bike was called Urago, which was a French brand, URAGO. So this was my first ever bike that I can remember of, or I've seen a photo of, let's say.
Yeah. So before actual memories.
Yeah.
Yeah. And did you continue to ride bikes all the way
No.
through childhood?
No,
You
not at
stopped?
all. I rode bike. I did plenty of different sports. But I really get into biking when I was 12, 13 years old, not before.
And so what was it about bikes that got you into it at that stage?
Well, at that stage, I got into bikes because my parents didn't want me to do motorbikes. My brother was doing trails motorbike. He was in the national team, and I wanted to ride motocross. And as I was a little too crazy, they said, well, we got to get you a bike. And they got me a mountain bike. And obviously, the first thing you do is cross country. And I'm like, that's not going to happen. I don't like that. And then I started discovering downhill and got myself into downhill.
Okay. So is there like a first memorable off-road ride that you can remember? You go like, this is fun.
It's super easy because I start really off-roading actually behind my house. I got the lucky chance to have like a forest ride behind in my parents' house where I was growing, and basically I just start shaping my own trails and jumps there, and I discover what really mountain biking was about just behind home. And obviously in the south we're having a fairly rough terrain that is not making mountain biking super easily. And if you become a good rider there is a good chance that you'll be a very good rider everywhere.
Yeah. And so had you seen a lot of other people riding mountain bikes, or were you taking the motorbikes trials thing and like, I'm not allowed a motorbike, so I'm just going to replicate what I
Yeah, it was pretty much this. Like at the time, I didn't see like the communication was not like today. I didn't see much mountain biking by then. And there was no real big races around my area. So it was more being inspired of what I could do just on my own there. And then there is my neighbor that you may know, that is Nicolas Vouillot, that started to get really into mountain biking just because he was 4 years older than I was. And obviously when we start organizing the local race in Pay, that's where I really got into downhill myself as well.
Right. Okay. Well, you've told us about your first mountain bike. Let's take a sad line then. What was the first bike you had stolen?
Stolen? Believe it or not, none.
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 A charmed life.
No, it didn't happen.
Or I'm in
Touch wood.
France, like there's clearly a great place.
Touch wood. But
Yeah.
we had that very unlucky story at World Championship 1998. The French team is parking all bikes into a garage, and my bike on the Saturday evening before the race was about to be done, and I say to the mechanic, I say, well, he wanted to inflate the tires and get all the bike ready, and I say, well, I'm not racing until the afternoon, so let's finish the bike up properly tomorrow morning when our head is fresh. And we park all the bikes in that garage. My bike was the first one in the garage, and people break into that garage overnight, the night before the race, took my bike ready to ride, and because it was not finished, put it on the side and took the next one. And we could see that on the video surveillance of the garage.
Right.
And it didn't get stolen, and I was pretty lucky that day.
So that's the answer. We need to all just let our tyres down.
And then the next day I won my first World Championship title.
So charm was the gods were shining down.
It was supposed to, at least.
Well, okay. If the gods were shining down on you that day, today you get to be God and you get to design your own island.
Okay.
So what are you going to choose by the rocks and the plants and the soil and the weather? Like, what would be your dream island to live on?
Well,
for the rest of your day?
Yeah, for the rest of my days. Well, I would definitely take an island that is pretty big. First of all, to make sure that I got enough space to ride around. I'll definitely take a bike with me.
Well, you're going to come to that.
And for sure, if I have to discover, I would take a ground that is pretty sandy with grippy rocks. A little rain every evening by 5-6 p.m. to make sure that we cool down and get water everywhere is needed and the plant will grow nicely.
Okay.
Probably having a sunny sunshine all day long, I would say that's what you aim for. And mainly make sure that you have about maybe 800, 900 of positive altitude that you can ride, and make sure that you can have proper downhill.
So not a huge, massive mountains.
No. Just a little one that is
enough.
sufficient to make sure that you don't have the top. Now, I mean, I'm a big fan of skiing, so for sure, if we can have a real winter on the island that could provide me
have what you like.
on the winter, I'll take it for sure. There are three things you have to know that I really like into sports. First of all, I really like nature. It's really important for me to do my sport in the nature, anything I do. I love discovering terrain in moto. I love skiing and backcountry skiing, and I obviously love mountain biking.
Okay. So, are you aware of trash-free trails? Do you know?
No.
I think it's more UK based.
Yeah.
But that's all about reconnecting with nature.
Yeah.
Through the process of picking up trash that you find along the trails.
Yep.
But just like engaging with the trails that you ride on and kind of being thankful for what you have. So,
which is what we do.
Yeah.
Like, clearly, we don't have the concept as you define it clearly, but in the communities I'm in and in the way we drive things, we maintain the trails, obviously, make sure that there is no ruts and braking bumps and recreate and make sure that the trail is in good condition. And obviously, cleaning and trash are really part of it. And we are putting a lot of pressure just for the mountain generally to stay clean. Yeah. And we do quite a few actions in this way.
So when you're racing, I guess, you're like eyeballs out and you're looking at the trail and you're really focused on your performance and stuff. But you're saying that actually you really enjoy the being in nature and looking around you part of it.
You know, I always imagine a mountain biker as a surfer. A surfer would eat his wave and take the wave and use the energy of the wave to slide and to go over the distance he wants to create. A mountain biker is in a similar situation. If you fight the terrain and you don't play with it to find the right flow, if you don't go with the mountain and with the element, you won't be a good racer.
Right.
Any good racer is in capacity to find the right pace and right rhythm that go with the terrain. And the terrain and the nature around, the energy you have from the trees, etc., is around there. It's not something you can just avoid. And surely, either you are constantly aware of this, or you're not. Surely everyone feels it.
Okay. So, as you are God and you're going to be on this island forever, you can choose whether you're going to send an advanced trail team to build all your trails for you.
Yeah.
And that's it forevermore.
Yeah.
Or whether you're just going to start from scratch on the island and you're going to do it all yourself. But then you can be as creative as you want.
Yeah. Definitely the second solution.
Yeah. And so what sort of trails would you build? Would you be building like really built stuff, or would you be going for natural stuff? Or?
I would say that I would adapt to the terrain I have. And, I started racing downhill shaping my own trails, like most people do. Mm-hmm. And I have to say that I did enjoy cleaning my trails and making my trail as much as riding them. So without a doubt, for sure, having the comfort of having trail-based is absolutely amazing. Yeah. And you can create stuff that are way beyond what you could do on your own. But shaping your own line and riding it, it's like designing your own bike and riding it as well. And this is priceless to me.
And for most of us mortals, building your own trail is more achievable than designing your own bike, I think.
Well, yeah, it's definitely more. But designing your own bike is also not maybe going crazy as I'm going with R&D departments and things like that, but also just creating your build, setting up your geometry the way you want, making the bike your own is something that is very satisfying.
Okay. So is there a bike that you wish that you'd had, but you never did have? It's the one you lusted after?
Yeah, I would say yes. Yeah, I'm always dreaming about bikes that I want to have and I don't have.
But there's not one out there that like you couldn't ride because you were on the wrong sponsor at the time or something like that.
A bike, no, like just like that. I'm lucky enough to have been able to develop everything really I wanted until now. I have a lot of crazy ideas I'd like to push behind, but it's often hard with the brands to make them trying to have a lot of step in advance or going crazy advanced research like we want. But I think it's also how sometimes you create small revolution. And I did that in the past on geometry aspect, on suspensions, and on bar width back in the days and things like that. And I think there is a lot more to do and still to do. And all the electronic that is coming in is a new wave of things to understand what is possible, including on the e-bikes or not. And I do believe that there is a lot more that can be done. But I would say a bike that I really wanted and I didn't ride, I would say no. I always had the chance to develop what I wanted.
Oh, nice. Okay. Well, have you ever got it wrong? Is there a bike that you've had that you wish you hadn't?
Oh, for sure. Oh, yeah, there's plenty. Prototypes where we did mistakes. Bike setup where we got it wrong. Yeah, for sure, without a doubt, there is things that we did wrong in the past. And most of the time, what's frustrating also in my role is that you develop a bike, this bike is finished, goes out in the market generally a year after or a year and a half. But during that year and a half, you had other ideas that are actually been growing through your mind and completely change the vision of what you done that year before. So you end up launching a product that is not exactly in line with what you would have expected.
Right.
Hey,
Guy, a minute.
Hello. We're recording.
I'll wait for him to root.
Can you get that?
Yeah, we can edit it. It's fine. Thank you. Sorry. So you've been lucky enough to design the bikes that you want. What was the first bike that you bought with your own money?
So as a joke, and it's not a joke, I actually, believe it or not, never buy a bike.
Never? You've never bought a bike in your whole life?
I never bought a bike. Believe it or not. I enter into the sport. So my parents bought me my first kind of mountain bike. After that, I wanted to get into downhill and it was really expensive. And that was right on the moment my brother was stopping trail motor. And my brother sold his motorbike and with the money bought me my first ever downhill bike.
Okay.
And I did my first race in pay in 1995 downhill. During that first race, I did a good result, and they asked me to do the sweeper of Cap d'Aille World Cup. And I did a sweeper of Cap d'Aille World Cup. That was my second race in my life, and I got the 17th time overall. And Max Commensal from Commensal Bikes came to see me and offer me a 4-year contract to ride for him.
Just like that.
In 4 months. So from my first race to my first pro contract was 4 months. So I actually never bought a bike in my life.
And you didn't have to sell your soul. Amazing. Okay, so on the island, you're going to have a lot of time on your hands.
Yeah.
So what skill...
Which is priceless. I need time. I need time. Like everyone, I need time. Bring up the island.
So what skill would you like to learn?
Surviving. Definitely surviving skills. How to work around the elements that you have around you. Have a lot less impact with the amount of communication we're having today.
Well, you won't be allowed to communicate with anyone on the island.
That's why learning how to be without it and connecting more with the elements that I have around me, which is basically the nature and what's on the island. Yeah.
It sounds very monk-like. Very zen.
Which could be in some way not for life, but for a certain period of time could be a good reset for people.
Well, you could probably go off to Tibet and
Well,
do that.
maybe one day you'll be surprised and that's where I am.
Okay, so now we're getting down to the really hard questions. You only get to take one bike with you.
Ha!
To ride forevermore on these trails that you are going to build.
Yep.
So, what's it going to be?
So I define the bike. I don't give brands. Let's put it this way.
Okay.
I would take definitely without a doubt a trail bike to be able to do everything I want. I would definitely put a big fork on it. Probably I would say 170 mil travel with 155 mil travel on the rear.
That doesn't sound very much like a trail bike.
Yeah, it is to me. That's what I call a trail bike. Fairly enduro-ish, something that would allow me to go quite easily up around 12 kilo, 12.5. Light and poppy to be able to play. It jumps as much as I would like to. It curves at high speed. It still carry a good speed on flat trails in case I have to go around the island. And I would definitely go for quite big wheels to make sure I have stability and downhill casing because you don't want to flatten the island. No. and yeah, just enjoy the ride and make sure I have a telescopic seat post that has got a lot of travel so I can really go downhill properly with a low saddle when it's the time. And probably proper downhill bar, 780, something that would provide me the comfort I need and rip it up, yeah.
Do you have a preference on frame material?
I would definitely go for carbon. With the construction, it was not the case, let's say 7-8 years ago, I was still in doubt on some aspect of what the material could bring. But with the understanding we have now of the fiber and how the frame could be built, carbon is the way to go.
Cool. You can have an annual visit from a mechanic to do something that you either don't want to do or don't know how to do, or something that just drives you so crazy.
Yeah.
So what would you like this mechanic to do for you?
Service my suspension in the best we can.
The dark art. You're not the first person to say that.
That's definitely
like,
all the rest. All the rest I can do at grade. Servicing I would say I can do as well, but probably adapt my setting and dumping with a bit of a shim stack, joining me with a DAQ and a little computer to make sure I can set up for the island properly my bike.
Okay. And are you going to have an air shock or a coil shock?
I would definitely go for a coil.
Coil?
Yeah, without a doubt.
Okay. And we will give you a single track subscription. So you will always have something to read.
Fantastic.
But you also get to take another book.
Yep.
So what book would you like to take?
Le Petit Prince.
Ah, a French
from
classic.
Saint-Exupéry. You know why?
Go on.
You can read this book as many times as you want, and you will never understand the story twice the same way. And this is the beauty of this book.
I think I read it once and went, huh?
Yeah. And you know what? You will read it again and you will be, huh?
Oh, well, maybe I should go back. It's only short, isn't it?
Yeah. It's not long, but very inspiring. and put your brain out there too.
Yeah. Okay, so something short but inspiring.
Yeah.
Okay. And you get to take one album with you, one music album with you.
That's a tough one. I'm not an expert of music, but I have to say that AC/DC is probably the one I would take.
Oh, I like your style.
Yeah. That's what I would take. Sounds old school, but I would, without a doubt, take that.
And you get to take one luxury item as well. You can't take anything that you can communicate with the outside world.
Okay.
And you can't take anything that you might escape on.
But a luxury item is not something to communicate with the others.
Well,
It's something that is close to your heart. One luxury item that I would take with me, not to communicate, so it can be any object.
any object, yeah.
Any object that you could take.
But no yachts, because you'd escape on a yacht.
Oh, I won't take it.
It sounds like you're quite happy to stay. So.
Yeah, I would be.
And you've got a helmet, you've got some trail tools, you've got a toolkit. So,
Yeah.
your bike is going to be fine.
So all that aspect of things would be good.
Yeah.
I don't think I would need much more. I would probably like to take my tools to make sure that I can hunt properly the way I want.
Oh.
Yeah. So
hunting.
maybe a bow and arrow or something like that. Something very close to nature, so you can make sure that you eat properly, and you can fish with a bow and arrow as well. So.
Oh, can you?
Yeah,
I
for
think
sure.
that might require a lot of patience.
You attach your rope and you can do so.
Have you done it?
It depends on what you can have around the island. Could be a lot of fish.
Well, you're God, you get to
Yeah,
see this fish
yeah,
there. So,
very good,
yeah.
very good.
Okay. Have you done that before then? Have you hunted with a bow and arrow?
I never hunted in my life.
Well, I think you should have made. Maybe you did
But
say survival skills.
I've been shooting bow and arrow and from large distance, 100, 120 meters, and you'd be surprised of the precision you can have here.
Yeah, cool. Okay, well, I hope that you are set for a long and fruitful survival. on your island now.
I'm fully ready. Tell me when I'm going.
You sound like you're ready.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for joining
My
us today.
pleasure. Thank you, Anna.
Welcome back. So you join us back in the studio. Now, before we sign off, I've just got one more question. And it relates to an image that we posted in Fresh Goods Friday last week.
An
Chips.
offensive image.
Was it offensive? Yes, well, it certainly... There's a picture in Fresh Goods Friday of you basically in green lycra, top to toe. It did feature in this week's puzzle slider that we put out in Mental Monday.
Joy.
For those brave enough to have a go at it. And so it just got me thinking, one, why? Two, is there still a place in mountain biking for lycra? And I don't mean underneath, because I think, is it acceptable to go out riding a mountain bike these days just wearing lycra?
I don't know. Yes. Do whatever you want, can't you? Is the real answer. But I think I wonder why people just wear lycra. I mean, it's just cold, isn't it, if you live over here? But I suppose you can get skin-tight windstopper, which is the same sort of cling-on effect, isn't it?
Well, before we get Chips's input on this, because he was the one wearing it all.
I think a lot of the problem with that photograph was the colour. It's a really odd colour for lycra. Not used to it.
Well, at least it wasn't white, which is what Chips's normal default lycra colour is. But I have to say, I've got loads of baggies, and they've got liners built in and that sort of thing. And I have to say, I kind of miss riding out in just lycra shorts, because I still maintain, unless I'm not wearing the right baggy shorts these days, there's nothing more comfortable than just a pair of lycra shorts. I'm not advocating it. Like I said, I'm never going out again just riding in lycra shorts. But it is remarkably comfortable, and I've not come across anything as comfortable as just a pair of nice lycra shorts to ride a bike in. Anyway, let's get the opinion of the man himself.
Yeah,
Chips.
I'd say, first of all lycra shorts should be black. That should be the law, and no colour.
But why are yours never black? Why are yours tartan and white and green? We never see you in black lycra.
Because they can sell all the black shorts that they make, so So the ones they send out to review are always coloured. Also, there seems to be a worrying trend in...
So that's your excuse and you're sticking to it, really,
absolutely.
is it?
There's a worrying trend in the gravel world where people are riding out in kind of Farrell and Ball colours. I don't know what colour mine would be, sort of Tuscan olive. But there's, I've seen a lot of like aubergine shorts and, dusky pink and some really quite odd looking colours from people trying to be a bit different. But I'm with Mark Cavendish, who, when he won the World Championships, it comes with the obligation to wear the World Championships, World Champions jersey for the next year. But also it comes with white shorts. And Cav was like, no, I'm going to wear black shorts, thanks. I'll wear the jersey, but and you can fine me for not wearing the correct outfit, but I'm going to wear black shorts. But in terms of like Lycra on its own, I would say there still isn't a better on-bike storage solution than the 3-pocket road jersey. I think having 3 pockets in the back of a Lycra jersey is the best way of carrying a fair amount of stuff, and no amount of cargo shorts or Lycra with pockets, which is also wrong, is going to beat that. So I think Lycra jerseys, in terms of shorts, I think it depends on, are you vaguely the right shape for Lycra shorts? Because they are particularly unflattering, or flattering, I guess, if you're feeling buff, and possibly the temperature. It used to be that it was verboten for any mountain biker to wear winter like bib tights in the winter, because that was full Lycra and it wasn't allowed, and you weren't allowed to wear baggy shorts over your full Lycra bibs. But then I think Steve.
No one told me that.
Well, I think Steve Peat championed the full tight with baggy shorts over the top, and suddenly it was okay, even though it looks a bit odd. But I think Lycra shorts on their own, it probably depends on the speed and the circumstances. If you're riding fast, then no one's going to see you in your Lycra shorts for very long. And if you're not, if you're aware of finishing your ride in a country pub full of farmers, it may not be the best thing to be wearing.
Fair enough. There we go. That's the definitive word, the single track policy on Lycra.
Can I just be modern and say every shape is the right shape to wear Lycra? You can wear it if you want.
Yeah, okay, yes.
Yeah, and I think that's how we should leave that conversation. That's pretty good. So anyway, that's all for this week. First of all, what are you up to this week, Benji? Anything planned? Any bike riding you're going to do of note?
Yes, cramming it in really. I've not need to ride any more the hardtails anymore. There's loads. I don't know how to answer that really. I'd like to get out on my own bike. So I might do that on Sunday. We shall see.
Cool. Chips, what are you up to this week? I think you've sort of outlined you're going to be up in the valley this week, aren't you?
I am. By the time you listen to this, I will be up in the valley. But before then, I'm going to the cycle show in London tomorrow in Alexandra Palace. So I'm getting a train up from Somerset, and I'm going for the day just to see what's there, catch up with the bike industry, see what the overall vibe is in the world, whether everyone's got far too many bikes filling their warehouses, or and it's all a disaster, or if it's a great time to be a modern cyclist.
I'm going to be on Saturday. I'm going paddleboarding for the first time ever, which should be fun. Talking about Lycra and everything, that I'm going to be wearing a wetsuit, which I think is probably going to be even worse. And then on Sunday, I think I'm going up to Whinlatter. So if anyone's riding Whinlatter on Sunday, I should be blatting around. Maybe just my usual Whinlatter schedule is to go, shall we do the big red? No, let's just do the blue twice and then go at the calf. So anyway, if you're up there at Whinlatter, give us a shout if you spot me on the trails. And other than that, I think that's all for us this week. Until next week, that's a goodbye from me.
Goodbye from me.
Goodbye from me.
I'll wave as well.
All right.
Goodbye from him.
For those listening in black and white, Benji's just waved. So that's all. Cheers, everybody.
All right.